Hello again, everybody. Welcome to video number 5. In this video, we are going to learn about grouping geometry so that instead of a cube just being a bunch of faces and edges that the program doesn't really understand, you want to be a separate object. We're going to group geometry together so that it stays as something that can't be interfered with. I'll show you what I'm talking about. First, let's not create a new this time because we want to use the three-dimensional shapes that we created in our last one. However, we don't want to mess with this file because what if we didn't get something quite right and we want to come back later and change it? So we are going to duplicate this file. Come over here and click the three dots and hit duplicate. And that should duplicate your 3D shapes. Give you this file called 3D Shapes 1. Well, now we don't want to name it the same thing. We want to name it something different so we can distinguish between them. So let's rename this, and we're going to call it today's lesson, which is grouping and editing. Now that we've got it, let's click on it and open it up. So here we have everything that we had last time. I would like us to delete all of the dimensions. So with your select tool, spacebar, go ahead and click the dimensions and start deleting them. If you make a mistake in this process and accidentally delete something like that, making a hollow, remember you can always just Control Z. So delete. If you're having trouble getting it, you can also just click and drag over the area and it'll grab it. Again, if you do something like that and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean to, Control Z, and that'll undo. So now we've got all of this stuff. Now, what I want to talk to you about is super, super important for creating any kind of composite object or any project. You need to group your geometry. Right now, this program only doesn't understand this as a cube. It understands this as this random face, this random edge, this vertex right here, another face. It doesn't understand that that's all put together and it's not meant to be combined with anything else. Now, I haven't taught you this skill yet, so don't worry too much about what I'm about to do. But if I were to click everything here and move it over like this and join those together, there might be a scenario in which I would want to edit this thing without editing this thing later on. But right now, Sketchup just recognizes all of this as individual stuff. So if I mess with one, it's going to mess with the other. Maybe I only wanted to raise this part. So I'm just going to Control Z, Control Z. So what we need to do is group this geometry. Like, look at what would happen if I took this cylinder, and don't worry too much about what I'm doing right now, but I just want to show you if I moved it over here like this, and I wanted to create this composite object of this cylinder on top of this, and then by accident later or whatever, I want to remove this little piece right here, but I wanted it to take away the whole top of the cube and it didn't recognize this as different. All this is now is just a bunch of random stuff together. The program doesn't understand that I wanted it to be a cylinder on top of a box. It just recognizes all of this as one thing. So I need to say, hey, this is a group of geometry. So what you do is you triple click it. 1, 2, 3. When you triple click something, it selects every single connecting piece of geometry. So again, if I were to move this over to here and then go 1, 2, 3, it'll select everything because it just selects everything that is put together. So instead, what I want to do is with this over here, 1, 2, 3, that highlights everything. That's like a select all. It's the same thing as doing this, selecting everything. Now right click on it and hit make group. Now when I select this like this to move it, it moves the whole thing as a group as opposed to before if I were to select right here and move this, it's only going to move that one face. So see how that makes it a problem? I don't want to move this one face and have this random shape, right? I want to move the cube over. So you go 1, 2, 3, right click, make it a group, and now anytime I click that, it's recognizing that whole thing as a cube. So I want you to group all of your geometry. Go ahead and triple click, 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. 1, 2, 3, right click, make group. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. We now want to edit things. So I'm going to take this cube, and I've just decided I don't want it to be 3 feet tall anymore. I want it to be 5 feet tall. So I want to take this top face and actually raise it up. But how can I do that now that I've made it a group? Well, here comes another very important part of SketchUp, editing groups. So this cube, I want to work on it again, but it's all one thing. So if I'm trying to like draw on it, even if I make a line down its center like this, SketchUp is recognizing that this is a completely separate piece of geometry. It's not part of that cube because the cube is a group. And I didn't edit the group. I just drew a line on top of the box, but I didn't actually cut the box in half. So to edit a group, you double click it. So let's just double click and you'll notice that all of the other aspects of your model gray out and you are given this editing box. Now I can mess with things again. So now I can take this and without fear of screwing up anything else on my model, I can raise this up another 2 feet. So let's do that now. Hit P for your push pull tool. Click and release. Remember, we don't drag. So click it and release, and then move it up a little bit and type in 2 feet because it was 3 feet and we want it to go up 2 more feet. Hit enter. That should now be 5 feet tall. If you hit the space bar and click anywhere outside of that hovering editing box like this, you're now out of edit mode. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You can also, when you're in edit mode, just hit escape and it'll get you out of edit mode. So now, once again, if I click it, it highlights the entire thing. If I double click it, I would go back into edit mode. That one's now 5 feet tall. All right, so this rectangular prism, let's make this super thin, like a sheet of plywood. Now, I want to make it 3/4 of an inch thick. So let's, and I'm going to bring it back this way. So I'm going to take this line right here, which I've made a group. See that back line right there? And I'm going to slide it up this way to make it a super thin standing piece of plywood, 3/4 inches. However, I don't want to do the math of like it's 9 feet long. And so I need to subtract 8 feet, 11 1/4 inches. I can do that, but I know not everybody can. So what we want to do is make this 3/4. So I'm going to give myself a guide. I'm going to use my tape measure, T. So go ahead and hit tape measure T. And we're going to start anywhere along this edge, preferably not in the middle. It doesn't, oh, sometimes it doesn't work very well in the middle. So go ahead and hit T, hover with this purple square or circle anywhere along this edge, and click and release. Now it comes out parallel, your guideline comes out parallel to the edge that you started on. So pull it out like this and then type in with it in edit mode, just like everything else. Remember, you clicked and release, you're not dragging. We do not drag in SketchUp. We click release and then we move our mouse. So you can see in the bottom right corner that it's at 10 3/4. We only want it to be at 3/4. So type in 3 and then /4 inches. That's 3/4 of an inch. So 3 and then the question mark / without hitting shift for question mark, just that /4 and then your inches, which is your quotation marks, and hit enter. That has now given us a guideline, and things in SketchUp will snap to that line when they get close to it. So now we've got to navigate. Let's hit space for our select tool. We've got to navigate around to the back of this because that's the face that we want to grab and edit in. I'm not in edit mode. If I try to do something like push pull, it'll see how it has that little you can't push pull this because push pull can only happen to an editable face, and that is now part of a group because we grouped everything. So what do you think we need to do? We need to go into edit mode. Let's double click. Now we're in edit mode, and now when I push P for my push pull tool, you'll see that all of these will light up and I could change them if I wanted to, right? I want to change this one. So I'm going to not drag. We do not drag. We click and release. So click release. That's now ready to move. And I can just hover anywhere on this guideline. See that guide? I could hover way out here on this guideline. It knows that I'm trying to snap to that 3/4. So make sure you've got that red square that shows up and it says on line outside active, meaning we're going to snap to that line. You could do it right up here. You could do it on the thing if you want. I'm going to do it somewhere where I can clearly see. Actually, with it in edit mode, I'm just going to zoom in a bit because I really want to make sure I'm in the right spot. Yes, that looks good. I will now click to end it. I'm still in edit mode, so I want to hit space and then click anywhere outside of that box or hit escape, and that will take me out of edit mode. So now I've got a group, which looks like a refrigerator. That should be, what was it, 3 feet by 3 feet by now 5 feet tall. I've got this standing sheet of plywood, which I really can't remember the dimensions, so I'll check it with my tape measure. It's 4 feet by 3 feet by 3/4 inches thick. Let's take our triangular prism and let's shrink that down to 5 inches tall. So how can you do that? Well, first let's click this guide and delete it. We don't need that there anymore. Let's come up from the bottom of this shape with our tape measure. We're going to make a guide. So click release. Make sure you're coming up, not out this way in the green dimension, right? So you don't want to be setting your thing in the green dimension. We want to be coming up in the blue, and we want to come up, oh shoot, sorry, I can't remember what I said. Let's go with 5 inches because I can't remember. So with it, again, we've clicked and release. We're in edit mode. You can see down in the bottom right corner, the length is changing. We're going to go 5 inches, enter. Our guideline's now at 5 inches. We need to edit this down to that height. So we're going to double click, hit push pull, click and release, and bring it down to our 5 inches. Escape to get out of edit mode and delete your guide. So now we have a 5-inch tall triangular prism. And lastly, we've got this cylinder group. So let's, let's match it to the height of our rectangular prism over here. So I want to match it up to this one. So there's a few ways you can do that. If you remember, you can push pull and it'll do the last thing that you did. Well, that's not what I want, right? I could double click, which I just did. I double clicked it and it remembers the last thing I did was take this down to 5 inches. So it's brought that down to 5 inches. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. So Control Z, let's push pull, click and release. And now let's hover over top of this face. You can do it right on that corner or anywhere on the face if it recognizes it, and it'll go to the same height. So I'm going to click there. Now I've got those up to the same height of 5 feet. Okay, so this is a bit of a longer video, but I'm trying to teach you several skills in it. So we've talked about first of all, making a group. We now have done editing those groups. So double click lets us, play with what we've already made. If I wanted to change something, if I wanted to, change the height of this, I could push pull it, hover over the face that I want and shrink that down if I wanted. So that's edit mode. And the last thing I want to do is talk about moving. So it's much better to move objects that have been grouped. So if I want to move this and it hasn't been grouped, so for example, if I clicked this group and I hit explode, which just means ungroup it basically, all of these are now individual pieces of geometry. So let's say I wanted to take this triangular prism. Don't do what I just did, by the way. Just let me talk for a second. And I want to put it up on top of this for some reason. All right. I want to raise my triangular prism and put it up on top of this thing. Well, let's grab it right here by using the move tool. And again, just watch for now. Don't worry. I'm going to hit M for move. I'm going to click down here on this corner, and without it in edit mode, without it grouped, it's only moving that one point of geometry, right? So it's creating a weird shape. That's why we group things. So I'm going to regroup it like you have right now. And now when I click the M move tool, so hit M, it'll change into this tool. Come down here and click this bottom corner. So click it and release. And now you can start moving that group around. Okay, so this is how we build things in SketchUp. We can build wood, like make lumber, and then put things on top of each other, line them up. And so let's line it up right like this on top of that. Okay, so we've got that like that. What else would be weird to do? Let's take this and move it over here on this. Oh no, let's move it right to the back here. We're going to put it here like some kind of weird backing. So grab it by the corner that you want to line up. I want to line up with this back corner right here. So I'm going to take the back corner of this and move it and snap it right here. So let's move this back corner. And I'm going to go straight down here, zoom in on it, maybe pan down a bit, and snap it right there. So now I've got this kind of thing. And remember, these are still all individual shapes. They're not grouped together, right? So if I move one, it's not all going to move as one unit. And the last thing we're going to do is put all of that randomly on top of our cylinder. So you've got to select all of this geometry. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Ingram. How come 1, 2, 3 doesn't select everything touching. Isn't 1, 2, 3 supposed to select everything touching? No. 1, 2, 3, well, yes, it does, but these are groups now, right? So we've literally told the program, do not treat this as random geometry, treat it as a group. So if I want to click them all, there's two ways I can do it. One is to start in the top right and drag over all of it. Then I could move all of that as a unit. The better way, though, is to click this one, hold in the control button, click this one, hold in the control button again, and click this one. You can see when you hold in the control button, that little plus sign appears, which means you want to grab more stuff. And what we're actually going to do is make all three of these a group. So right click on it and make that a group. So now you have three groups within a group. And this is how, if you were designing a house or something and you design one floor and you really like that floor and you don't want to make a mistake later in your home design and screw anything up on that floor, you would make the entire floor a group. And then if you want to edit it, you would double click, and now I'm inside that group, but you can see that inside that group there are still three grouped geometries in there. So if I want to get rid of this group of everything, I just right click and explode it, and now everything's just its own on its own again. So just practice that with me. Let's click them all, right click, make it a group, and now hit M to move it, and you'll be able to move all three of them. Click out, click back on, move, it's moving everything. However, let's say we don't want that. We're going to right click on this and explode that group, which means to ungroup that. Well, now we've got back to all three. Okay, haven't saved in a while, might as well save. All right, let's highlight them all, or again, click, control click, and make that a group. And now we're just going to move this corner right here up to, let's see if it'll snap to the very center for us. Doesn't look like it, so I'll take anywhere. Any of these kind of vertexes is just fine for the image that you're about to send me. So let's go right here. And this is a obviously nonsensical, ridiculous shape. Let's put it like this in our view. Don't worry about dimensions this time, but I do want to see your grouping and editing assignment should be something like this. So let's snip that, new. Don't forget to save your work. I should have saved my work before this, so I'm going to do this right now. Save my work. We're going to snip it, new, drag, file, save as, and on my desktop, I'm going to save this as grouping and editing. Enter, and now you're going to upload that to the grouping and editing assignment in Teams for me. I'll see you next time.